If you have questions about appraisals, you came to the right place. In this video, you'll learn all about real estate appraisals and the process appraisers use to determine property values, or more accurately, the processes that appraisers use to determine property values. And I'll elaborate on that as well as answer some common questions and fill you in on what you can expect to pay for an appraisal report. But before I get rolling, please take just a second to like and subscribe. And if you're in the market for a lender, I'd love to connect. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have and get you set up with a great mortgage at a great rate. My contact information is in the description below. Now, not every transaction is going to require a full appraisal report like the ones I'll be talking about in this video, and I've recorded another video about the alternatives to traditional appraisal reports and how the appraisal process is currently being modernized. I'll link that video above if you want to check it out. But to the matter at hand, let's dive right in to the appraisal report itself. Appraisal forms, the forms the appraisers use, are specific to the type of property being appraised. Fannie Mae's developed forms for single-family homes, that's Form 1004, for condos, Form 1073, Form 2090 is the form for co-ops, Form 1004C is for manufactured homes, and Form 1025 is for 2 to 4 unit properties, small income properties. These forms include nuances that are designed to take in the information about each property type, but at a glance, they really look similar. And when you get a copy of your appraisal report, you'll first have to scroll past a cover sheet or two, the appraiser's contact information, and so on to get to the meat and potatoes of the appraisal report. The first page is always a description of the property and the neighborhood. And there are lots and lots of checkboxes and blanks that the appraiser has to fill in. Deeper into the report, the appraiser is usually going to add a narrative that has some more free-form information and expands on all of those checkboxes. And then the condo form has a second page that has information about the homeowners association. And the manufactured home form includes a second page with details about how the home's installed on the site and the type of foundation that's under it. But the heart of the report comes next, and it's what we usually call the grid. Appraisers have 3 methods that they can use to come up with the value of a property. And these are the sales comparable approach, the cost approach, and the income approach. And within the report, the appraiser will talk about which approaches they developed, why they chose them, and how they were reconciled. And in theory, it's really up to the appraiser to decide which approach makes sense for a particular property. But in practice, only one approach really matters to lenders, and that's the sales comparable approach. You're going to pay your mortgage, of course, but if you don't pay your mortgage payment, the bank's eventually going to end up owning your home. And banks aren't interested in owning real estate. They just want to collect monthly payments. So after a foreclosure, the bank wants to resell a property as soon as possible. So the things banks want to know about a property are the marketability and the value. Is it going to be easy to sell, and how much will it sell for? The sales comparable approach is the backbone of every appraisal because it really answers both of these questions. The appraiser searches all the nearby homes that have sold and closed recently, and they look for the ones that are as similar as possible to your home, and they choose at least 3, but usually 5 to 7 of these properties, and they enter them into that grid in the appraisal report. These properties are called comparables or comps, and the appraiser will make systematic adjustments to each comp wherever there are differences between the comp and your property, and they'll reconcile all those adjustments to come up with a value. And the logic behind the adjustments and how they chose to weight the comps based on how closely they really work comparable to your property is usually found back in that narrative further back in the report. Following the grid is a section for the cost approach. And the heading for the cost approach includes a little parenthetical that says it's not required for Fannie Mae, which is really a hint at what I said before. The sales comparable approach is really what lenders care about. There, of course, isn't a lot of reason for appraisers to do work that's not required, so most of the time this section is going to be blank, but if the appraiser takes the time to complete it, I suggest sharing it with your insurance agent. Your insurance agent's going to need to work out how much insurance coverage you should have to rebuild your home if it's damaged in a fire or another disaster, and the cost approach could give them some useful information. Now, the third valuation option is the income approach, And it can be a little bit of a head scratcher for real estate investors. It's something that's super important to a real estate investor. When you buy a property as an investment, the income's really the thing. It's why you're buying the property. It weighs super heavily in how much you're going to be willing to pay for the property. And the income approach follows this same logic. First, the appraiser comes up with a market rent survey. That's on Form 1007, an additional form added to the appraisal report if you're buying a single family home, or if you're buying a 2 to 4 unit property. Form 1005 has the rent survey built right in. And the rent survey is almost like a mini appraisal inside of an appraisal. The appraiser searches for nearby similar rental properties, rental comps, just like they look for sales comps, and they use those comps to determine the likely market rent for the property. And then using this formula, they work backwards from the operating income into a value. The income approach is really important in commercial lending. That would be a warehouse or a residential property with more than 5 units or an office building or mini storage. But residential lenders just don't put a lot of weight on the income approach. Comps and the sales approach are where it's at for a lender thinking about the potential resale of a property that's going to be used as collateral for a loan. Now, below the grid with the sales comparables in it, there's a reconciliation section. And that's where the appraiser summarizes the values from each approach they took the time to develop, and then they call their shot and they indicate their opinion of the market value of the property. Also in the reconciliation section, the appraiser has to check a box marking the report either as is or subject to. As is means the appraiser considers the property to be in safe, habitable, marketable condition and in line with all the requirements for whatever loan it is you've asked for. If they mark the report subject to, that means one of two things. For an existing home, it means the appraiser found things that need to be fixed to bring the property up to financeable condition. The value that's indicated assumes that those repairs are made, so the appraiser is going to describe the repairs, and they may provide some photos to be helpful. It could be that these repairs are things that you and your seller have already negotiated and the seller's already agreed to fix, but not always. So you may wind up having to reopen negotiations and work with the seller to get those repairs made, because before you can close, the required work has to get done and the appraiser has to come back out, re-inspect, and sign off. Now, repairs don't always have to be made before closing if you've applied for a construction or a renovation loan. In fact, the point of a renovation loan or a construction loan is to let you close on a property in as-is condition. With a construction loan, that could mean it's just bare land. The appraisal is still going to be subject to whatever the proposed construction or repairs are, but the work is going to be financed into your loan and can be done after closing. Now, people worry about appraisal reports. I get a lot of concern questions from my clients, and I think it may surprise a lot of people to hear that it is really unusual for an appraisal to come in lower or higher than your purchase price. My real estate broker friends sometimes go so far as to say that appraisers just rubber stamp the value, but I'd really put it a little differently. Appraisers are tasked, when they're hired, with determining the market value of a property. And if you stop to think about it, you and the seller are the market. The seller made their home available for anybody to buy. They put it on the open market. Anybody could come see it and make an offer. You got out there shopping. You checked out all the available homes and you settled on this one that you're buying. And then you and the seller negotiated a mutually acceptable price to both of you. So that's the market in action, right? So unless you're buying an off-market property from a friend or your grandmother or some other family member, what we would in lending call a non-arm's length transaction, the appraiser can really start with the assumption that the price you and the seller settled on is probably the best indication of the market value, and they'll then circle out from that number looking to see if it's supported by the available comps. More often than not, it is, because the market works. Now, that's not to say that appraisals never come in higher or lower than the purchase price. Sometimes they do. Anytime the market is appreciating really rapidly, there's a chance that appraised values just can't keep up. Appraisers have to look backwards to close sales, And today's values could be higher. Those closed sales could be lagging if the market's moving really quickly. Unique properties can also be a little bit of a challenge. If a property has really special features or it's unusual for its area, or maybe the area just doesn't have a lot of sales, there may not be a lot of truly similar sales, truly similar comps for the appraiser to choose from. They'll do the best they can with what they've got, but it is possible that the appraisal will come in a little bit off. If an appraisal comes in high, it's probably a good indication that you're getting a really good buy on your home, because remember, the appraiser's not trying to bring a property in high. So, congratulations in that instance. Now, if your appraisal comes in low and you disagree with the appraised value, ask your lender how to request something called a reconsideration of value. This process is your chance to point out flaws you see in the appraisal report, submit additional information you think the appraiser didn't know or didn't take into account, and most importantly, to look for comps that support the value better. Or you could always just try to make lemonade out of lemons. I have never had anybody happy to hear an appraisal came in low. A low appraisal just doesn't feel like good news. But it could be your opportunity to negotiate a lower price with your seller. Paying less than you originally agreed to for your home is kind of a nice silver lining to that not so nice news when an appraisal comes in low. Now, most of the potential for questions about appraisals really comes out of that grid that I talked about, where the comps are entered and adjusted and reconciled. Real estate agents and online home valuation tools like Zillow and Realtor.com and Redfin and so on rely really heavily on the price per square foot as a way to determine value. And appraisal reports include and adjust for the cost per square foot too, but the adjustments are different. And if you look at the adjustments for example, extra bedrooms and bathrooms and other features, they'll often seem kind of really low and look a little weird. And this is because there's already, in appraiser's logic, a built-in underlying value for the square footage and the neighborhood and the quality of construction and the lot under the house. Below grade square footage is another place where a lot of questions can come up. Below grade square footage isn't ever counted as part of the gross living area on an appraisal. And at first glance, if you're looking at a house that has 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and the appraisal comes back showing just 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, you'll think the appraiser made a mistake and wonder how the heck could they miss a whole bedroom and a whole bathroom. But square footage and rooms that are below grade go on their own line in the grid. That's labeled basement and finished rooms below grade, so it's really easy to spot. And if any part of any wall on any level touches soil, even if it's just by a few inches, it's below grade. Room counts and square footage for daylight ranches, split level homes, and homes built into hillsides always look funky. I've financed a few homes built into hillsides that have almost no gross living area and have on the gross living area no bedrooms and no bathrooms. And they appraise just fine, but the appraisal report definitely looks odd. And appraiser's math, I guess while we're talking about room counts, can be a little quirky too when it comes to bathrooms. They tally full and half bathrooms separately, and they put a dot in between, but don't think of the dot as a decimal point. If your house has 2 full bathrooms and 1 half bathroom, you'd expect to see 2.5 bathrooms on the appraisal report. But no, that would be a house with a really peculiar floor plan. It would be 2 full bathrooms and 5 half bathrooms. So your appraisal should say 2.1 bathrooms, 2 full and 1 half bathroom. Now, I promise to talk about appraisal costs, and I lend in all 50 states, so I'll speak from experience when I say costs can vary a lot from one state to another and one area to another, and this is compounded a little because appraisers are independent contractors. They don't work for your lender directly, and they're free to set their own fees. So this can lead to some variability, but the vast majority of appraisals are going to cost between $400 and $900. Now, whatever the local market going rate is, fees will be relatively higher for more complex appraisals. Appraisals in rural areas also tend to cost more, and this is both due to the distance that appraisers have to travel to appraise rural properties, but also because of just supply and demand. There are fewer appraisers serving some of these areas. And appraisals that are more work and more complicated for an appraiser to complete are going to be relatively more expensive too. Unique properties, properties with accessory dwelling units, a property with any commercial or mixed use characteristics, or multifamily property, an investment property where the appraiser has to complete that rent survey that I talked about, those are going to be more work and they're going to tend to cost more. Now, the most expensive appraisals in the most extreme circumstances shouldn't really cost more than between $2,000 and $3,000 to maybe at the very high end $4,000. But truly anything over $1,000 to $1,200 is pretty unusual even in a higher cost market. And although you will pay for the appraisal report, technically the report is for and belongs to your lender, but you'll always get a copy. We're legally required to provide a copy to you as soon as we receive it from the appraiser. Now, I hope you found this video entertaining and educational. Please like and subscribe if you did, and reach out anytime you have mortgage questions or would like help for a loan, and you can check out my channel for more mortgage content.